What is up? Good Mike Work back at you with another Q&A segment or mailbag or whatever you want to call it. I've got a few interesting questions to answer this week. For those of you listening for the first time, please like and subscribe to my channel. If you would like to submit a question for these Q&As, please send them to the email on the screen, goodmicwork@gmail.com. You can also download this episode for free if you go to my website, goodmicworkcommentaries.com. You can also listen to me on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. Links to all of this stuff are in the description below, so please take a look. Sub, like, follow, support, comment, all that good stuff. I'm going to answer about 5 questions today that I just kind of read through some emails a little while ago and jotted down 5 or 6 that I liked. The first 2 are kind of similar. I'm going to start with Jacob Bonzel. I'm not sure where you're from. You didn't say. Your question is, Good Mike Work, if you could bring back one tag team to have one final run in the WWE, who would it be? Well, it's interesting that you said that because we are only 6 days removed from the return of the tag team that I would actually like to see come back and have one more run, and that, of course, is the Dudley Boys. Bubba Ray and Devon, as of the recording of this commentary, just made the return to the WWE a few days ago, and apparently they are back full-time. And this actually would have been my answer. I mean, they're really the only team that are young enough or capable enough of coming back and having a run. We already saw the Outlaws back. The Hardy Boys have been back together a time or two, but the Dudley Boys have been gone for 10 years. Can you believe that's how long it's been? The last time I remember seeing the Dudleys was right after the ECW One Night Stand pay-per-view in 2005. So really, it's just over 10 years. So that is a long time. And when they came back on Monday Night Raw, they looked just as good as ever. Their style, I think, will allow them to wrestle into their late or mid-40s. And now that they're back, I kind of almost see this as a farewell run, or at least with the WWE. I can't see these guys working full-time for the next couple of years. I see them doing what Rob Van Dam does. So if they could hang around from now until WrestleMania, I think that would be great. I would love to see the Dudleys get a run with the belts. I would love to see them go into the WWE Hall of Fame at WrestleMania 32. I kind of think Demolition and the British Bulldogs are a little bit ahead of the Dudley Boys in line, but if the Dudley Boys are back in, put them in the Hall of Fame. I think it would be really cool if they could grab the tag belts and have a long run and go old school with the tag team belts. Give it to the Dudleys for a few months, have them dominate everybody, and then have them drop it to a young team at WrestleMania. I don't really think the tag team division works that way, so I can't really see them doing that because they don't really invest in long-term feuds in the current WWE tag team division of today's day and age anyway, so that's probably not an option, but I definitely think the Dudleys back, when you look at all the tag teams in the WWE right now, I mean, they're almost a given that they're going to get the belts. I mean, hell, the Outlaws got the belts. The Dudleys will damn sure get them, and I can't wait to see it. And in a very similar question, Mike from Minnesota asks me basically the same thing, except your question pertains to a singles wrestler. What is one guy that you would love to see come back into the WWE and have one final run? For me, it's really only one guy, and that's Kurt. I really hated when Kurt Angle left in 2006. I really thought he would be gone for 2 to 3 years maximum, and he'd be back with the company. And the fact that he never came back breaks my heart because he was so awesome, and he had a hell of a career in TNA. He's got nothing to be ashamed of about leaving WWE. He's had a huge amount of success, going along with a huge amount of problems and personal issues as well, which has always made me feel really bad for Kurt that he wasn't able to really keep it together. But if the WWE could bring him in for one final run, because you know a guy like him, when you look ahead to the future and the Hall of Fame, the WWE is going to want to put him in the Hall of Fame one day. He deserves to go into the WWE Hall of Fame. But you know how WWE likes to promote this and make video packages and do tributes to this guy. They don't have any footage of Kurt Angle after 2006. So to me, if you could bring him in, kind of like they brought Sting in, to do a couple of shots or maybe have a strong 6-month run where he can work with a couple of guys and a couple of pay-per-views and build himself for maybe a retirement match or one final hurrah with the WWE or whatever they want to do. If Kurt Angle can get himself in shape enough to do that, I think the WWE could invest a half a year to a final Kurt Angle run. I don't think he's ever going to be able to come back full time. He's too old, he's too banged up, he's too messed up to even work like that. So he's either going to have to come in and out the way HBK or Undertaker always did, or he's going to have one good hard run for 6 months where maybe he feuds with 2 different guys for 2 to 3 pay-per-views each, leading up to some match where he puts someone over and loses, and maybe you can tie that in with a Hall of Fame induction and shit like that. So Kurt Angle, to me, is the one guy that I would like to see do that. And If you were asking me how you bring him back in, I was thinking, what would be a perfect scenario for Kurt Angle to come back in? Because you got to remember, Kurt Angle is not the intimidating, dominating beast that he once was. He was never a big guy to begin with, but people respected him because he could work and he could wrestle and he could fuck you up. But now Kurt Angle is older. His flaws and weaknesses are going to be exposed, kind of like Undertaker and Sting today. You kind of see that they're human and they're not as dominating and as iconic looking as they once were, and Kurt Angle would be the same deal. So I would like to see Kurt Angle come in. I got this idea from watching one of the old Royal Rumbles a few weeks back. Some of those early 90s Royal Rumbles I have fond memories of. I love 1990, 91, 92, and even 93 to a degree, and it was the Royal Rumble 1993 that I was watching. That was the year that Yokozuna won, which was actually a terrible finish. This Royal Rumble was the worst finish to a Rumble I've ever seen, and so hokey and stupid. For those of you who don't remember, Yokozuna and Randy Savage are the last two men in the ring. Savage gets Yoko down and hits him with the top rope elbow, but then he instinctively goes for a pin in the Royal Rumble, which is absurd. And Yokozuna kicks out so hard that he propels the Macho Man over the top rope outside of the ring, and that's how Yokozuna wins the Royal Rumble and goes on to WrestleMania to beat Bret Hart for the WWE title. I always thought that was such an absurd finish, but the Rumble itself did have a couple of things that I liked, and one of the main things that I liked about that Royal Rumble was the storyline that they brought in with Bob Backlund. Bob Backlund came back to the WWE in his mid-40s. He's so white meat and dorky and goofy looking, and he comes out there and he's dancing around. Most of the fans don't even know who he is because this was a completely different era, and Bob Backlund came before Hulkamania, and a lot of the fans during that time wouldn't have known who Backlund was. But he gets in there at like the number 2 or 3 spot, comes in the ring very, very early, and then ends up lasting nearly the entire Rumble. He's in there for the whole thing. I think he held the record for a long time until somebody finally broke it, but 50-plus minutes, something like that. And the crowd, throughout the duration of the match, were getting more behind him and more behind him with each passing elimination. The fans, even though 80% of them probably didn't know who he was, he became their favorite guy in the Rumble. And I remember when he was finally eliminated, the crowd booed their asses off. And I think it was Bobby Heenan and Gorilla on commentary, and Gorilla was doing such a good job of putting Bob Backlund over, constantly mentioning how many minutes he's been in there, and the way Gorilla would say, and Backlund is still in there. A lot of you might remember that. He was just, the whole thing was surrounded around Backlund and the awesome performance he was putting in at his age. So if you ask me, I would love to see Kurt Angle make his return to the WWE in a similar situation. What if you brought him in for the Royal Rumble? It doesn't have to be this Royal Rumble, just any future Royal Rumble, whenever they're ready to do this. You could even debate whether or not to announce it or not. You could let everybody know that Kurt Angle's going to be in the Rumble. That would be fine. Or they could bring him in as a surprise. Can you imagine if you're watching the Royal Rumble and the music you hear for the number 3 entrant turns out to be this? Imagine the pop that would get from the crowd and what an awesome and triumphant return it would be. So let's say you do that. You bring Kurt Angle back in that situation. He's in the ring. He's in the Rumble early, and he somehow lasts throughout the whole thing to where the fans are just, wow, Kurt Angle is not only back, but he is still in the ring putting forth a hell of an effort. It would be such a good way to get the fans right back into loving you and remembering who you were. Kurt Angle could be on the verge of elimination several times, and he can keep hanging on, and then when he finally does get eliminated, the crowd is really going to be pissed. Now, in today's day and age, that could backfire because the fans are such assholes today. They might shit on it, and they'd be pissed off that Kurt didn't win. Oh, I can't believe the WWE did that. They had him in there all that time, and they eliminate him just to piss off the fans. I think that's the way the fans of today would perceive that. But for me, it would be like, wow, Kurt Angle comes back into the WWE after being gone for 10 years and puts forth that effort in the Royal Rumble and damn near wins the thing. To me, that would almost do more for him than winning the match itself. Whoever eliminates him can be the guy he feuds with going into WrestleMania, and he can have his big send-off, a retirement, a Hall of Fame induction, and the whole deal. So there's lots of different ways you could bring Kurt in, but that way, I think, would be a lot of fun and make a lot of sense. Speaking of final matches, Joshua Miles from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania writes in, should WWE bring back Jim Ross to call The Undertaker's final match? Now, my answer to that question would immediately and 1,000,000% be yes, 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 yes. The WWE's answer to that might be completely different. I think the only way WWE will bring back Jim Ross for The Undertaker's final match is if Taker specifically requests it. And he's got to request it hard. Hey, this is my final match. You got to honor my wishes here. Let me have JR. I think if he does that and goes to them with that request, that they will do it out of respect for him. Otherwise, if he does not, I don't see it happening. I think the WWE wants Michael Cole to be the voice of the WWE for the future. And this is going to be a big moment for them. It's going to be The Undertaker's final match, a match and a moment that they are probably going to look back on for many, many years. And they're going to want Michael Cole's voice being heard during that whole situation. So to me, and the type of fan I am, and I'm sure to the type of fan a lot of people listening to this are, we want Jim Ross to call that match. And he should. He motherfucking absolutely should. I just hope that The Undertaker wants it bad enough to where he really lobbies for it and gets it. Because there's no way the WWE is going to do it on their own. Next up, we have an audio question, which reminds me I never even mentioned that when I was talking about these Q&As and launching this segment initially. If you would like to send me an audio or video question, please do. Just email me the MP3. I'll download it and play it for everybody. You could also send me a video, but since I am now making my commentaries available in podcast form, I think that an audio question would be best. So let's take a listen to an audio question from I Enjoy Games 2.
Hello, GoodMicWork. My name is I Enjoy Games 2, and this is a question for your Q&A segment. Before I get into my question, I would just like to say I love your channel, man. Keep up the good shit. But anyways, my question for you is, if John Cena was ready to retire and you were given the power to book how he should be retired, what his opponent should be, what kind of match, and when, how would you book John Cena's last couple months in the company? If you do answer my question, thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it, and keep up the good work. Peace.
Well, that's a pretty loaded question, but the reason I like your question is because after I got to thinking, I truly believe that question may not have an answer. I think John Cena is breaking the mold as far as what a WWE wrestler has been in the past. His run has been unlike no other, and he definitely has the controversy and popularity of no other. The way a lot of the fans are so split down the middle of how they feel about him. A lot of the most passionate people about Cena have very disturbing and violent thoughts of the guy. Even going as so far to celebrate his broken nose, and anytime the guy gets injured, there's people that want the guy dead. But on the other side of that coin, there's millions of kids all over the world that absolutely love the guy. So he's definitely unique, and there hasn't been anyone else like him. And when you look at his career in the ring, I don't even think John Cena's final opponent could even be decided at this point. It could still be a guy that we have never heard of or even seen come up to the main roster yet. It could be a guy that hasn't even stepped inside a ring ever. He might be a year away from even training to be a wrestler. I think that could be way in the future, but I also think that we might not even see that. A lot of guys... I mean, how many actual retirements have we really seen? Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels in recent memory, but even Ric Flair's doesn't really count because he got back in the ring. He'll never wrestle for WWE again, but he got in the ring in TNA and put on the tights and boots after he had that great send-off with Shawn Michaels, so technically that doesn't count. Shawn Michaels has still owned up to his retirement, although he's gotten physical in many matches since his retirement. But other than that, nobody retires. Nobody does. I mean, up until just a few months ago, before Hulk Hogan's racist rant, he's talking about working out and getting in the ring for one more match at WrestleMania. So nobody, it seems like, retires. And John Cena, when you think about what a physical machine he is, the fact that he's been able to work this insane schedule for so many years with minimal injuries, and when he is injured, he takes minimal time off. The guy has super healing powers, and he doesn't really look like he's aged much at all in the last 10 or 12 years either. So John Cena, I think, is a guy that, unfortunately, out there for a lot of the Cena haters, they're not going to like to hear this, but I think John Cena is a guy that's going to always have a presence on WWE TV. I say he wrestles balls to the wall, full-time schedule for the next 3 to 5 years, and then he starts to slow down his schedule. But I don't think he's going to ever really get out of the ring probably for the next 15 years. I mean, if Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair can have matches close to the age of 60, why can't John Cena? I mean, hell, The Undertaker's 50. John Cena's, 13 or 12 or 13 years away from being 50? So Cena can be in the ring for a long time. Now, the fans, I don't know if they're going to be able to tolerate him being full-time during all those years, and I don't believe he will. I think John Cena will dive a little bit more into movies and TV as he gets into his older age. I think he will lighten his load one day in the WWE, maybe not in the near future, but, the semi-distant future. It's on the horizon. I think fans will actually like him more that way if he just kind of came in and out, worked a Shawn Michaels or Undertaker or Brock Lesnar type of schedule, or if he came back in and out like The Rock does every so often and then continues his career in movies and doing all of his other projects. But aside from that, I never see John Cena having a retirement match and then never being seen again. I don't think we're going to see that from John Cena. WWE probably wants to build him as their next superstar icon, because think of what just happened to their most recent one. Hulk Hogan is now branded for life as being some racist asshole when really he's just a drunk idiot. I almost feel bad for Hulk Hogan that his stupidity got the best of him, because I don't truly believe Hulk Hogan is a racist. I just think he says stupid shit. But with John Cena, he's so squeaky fucking clean, which is another reason people hate the guy. The WWE probably sees this as an opportunity, for in 20 years to have a statue outside of the WWE of this motherfucker. So I'm not sure if we can really even debate or predict how his final match will go, because I don't know if John Cena will ever have a final match. He can't retire at 42 years old, because what happens, years later in the future with a big WrestleMania on the horizon, and WWE needs to make a phone call to somebody to come in and have a big match or have a dream match. I mean, John Cena is probably going to stay in great shape easily up until 50 years old. So if there's another guy on top of the WWE mountain, and John Cena has already, ridden off into the sunset, but could still work, the WWE can bring him back in for a major feud or a major WrestleMania match that's going to really help promote the show and buy rates and all that. That's what the WWE wants to do. So you can't have John Cena hang up the Reebok pumps in 3 years. He's going to have to wrestle for the next 15 years on and off. I know that is terrifying to some of you, but can you really disagree with me there? I mean, look at Hogan, look at Flair. These guys never got out of the ring. And I don't know if John Cena wants to put himself in a position to where he can't come back if he wants to for one big match or one big payoff. The WWE might have a guy on their roster one day that fans would say, oh man, could you imagine if he ever worked with Cena? That would be a dream match or whatever. And if John Cena is physically capable, WWE can ring him up. Hey, we'll give you $1 million. Come on in, work with this kid, put him over, beat him. Who knows? That can be debated later. But the fans want to see it. We want to give it to him. WrestleMania is on the horizon, so let's do it. And John Cena, after all the criticizing he did of The Rock for walking away from WWE and never looking back, he doesn't want to do that himself. So I think he's always going to have a presence. I don't think Cena's going to take a backstage role, because I don't think he needs to. He's made so much ridiculous money that he can probably enjoy his life and do other projects. But I definitely think he will come in from time to time. When he's 70 years old, he'll be the GM of Raw or something like that. You know what I mean? Like John Cena, I don't think will ever go away. And speaking of big-time WrestleMania matches, Rohan from India asks me, what do I think about Triple H versus The Rock at WrestleMania 32 with Ronda Rousey in The Rock's corner and Floyd Mayweather in Triple H's corner? Wow. That would be fucking crazy. If there's ever a situation where you can help put 100,000 people into one building, that might be it. Problem is, unless Mayweather and Rousey are working us, there's no way that's going to happen. It's a lot of bad blood there, and there's no way, if they try to do something staged, that Mayweather is going to want to put her over. I mean, if the two of them get in a scuffle outside of the ring, you think Mayweather is going to say, yeah, I'll let this woman beat my ass on TV? He's not going to do that. That piece of shit has got such a big ego. Now, if I were him, I think it would be great publicity to get humiliated like that, because, of course, he's a woman beater. I don't know why the WWE loves him. Didn't Triple H walk him down to the ring in one of his fights recently? Why in the world is the WWE even in bed with this guy? But when you're given the history between him and Triple H, it would make sense. Mayweather in Triple H's corner. To me, that match can really only go one way, though. The Rock has got to win. And if The Rock is going to win, Rousey and Mayweather have to get into it and get into a scuffle. And, like I said, unless he's willing to put her over, which I don't think he is, it really seems like these two hate each other, the way they're beefing with each other on Twitter and social media and on the news and everything. They seem like they really detest one another. But if they can put their differences aside for a big payday, again, this is Mayweather we're talking about. This guy wipes his ass with $100 bills. He makes $200 million per fight in some occasions. I don't know why he's going to need to do anything for the WWE for $1 million payday. Where with Ronda Rousey, that could be a big payday for her. So if the two of them can put aside their differences but still play along on TV and social media and kayfabe the whole thing, I think maybe it could make for an interesting situation at WrestleMania 32. But it would take so much to get that done. I would hate to see the WWE spend and burn so much time and energy trying to work out all the details and the contractual stuff because, guys like Mayweather, he's going to have his demands and all of this. I'd rather their attention be focused on their product and their wrestling than, two celebrities that you're trying to, bridge a gap of controversy, bring them together for the good of the business and product, and neither one of them are even wrestlers. Ronda Rousey's UFC, Floyd's boxing. So for them to come together in the WWE would make for a great buy rate, a great pay-per-view, a lot of eyeballs, a lot of publicity, but you got to get both of them to cooperate, and that's going to be a very tall task. I think if we're going to see anything, we're going to see the scenario that they set up last year at WrestleMania with Triple H and The Rock and Ronda Rousey and Stephanie McMahon. But your idea is definitely intriguing, to say the least. Jim from Tallahassee writes in, what are my thoughts and memories of the Ludvig Borga character in the WWE? Well, Ludvig Borga was short-lived. For you younger fans out there that might not know who Ludvig Borga is, look him up and tell me that he's not a doppelganger for Brock Lesnar. He was brought in 93 to be fed to Lex Luger. That was really the only reason he was brought in. And he was a monster, and he was smashed over so strong. He came in, he was beating the shit out of everybody. He went undefeated. I think Tatanka, at the same time, had an undefeated streak, and I believe Borga was the one that ended Tatanka's streak, and he was going on a streak of his own. So Ludvig Borga was believable. I can't remember what year he passed away, but I do know he's been dead for a little while. But the way he was beating guys left and right, I remember SummerSlam that year, he just squashed Marty Jannetty. And back then, Marty Jannetty was no slouch. He was just weeks removed from an Intercontinental title run, and back then the IC belt meant something. So Jannetty was a player, and Borga went in there and just tossed him around like a piece of shit. I remember Bobby Heenan putting the guy over like, this guy is not to be fucked with. So really, they just built him up to feed him to the new Hulk Hogan and the new babyface. This is what they were doing back then. It's so funny how a lot of fans complain about John Cena today. This was our John Cena. This was my John Cena in 1993. I did not hate Luger to the level that Cena haters hate Cena, but I was definitely annoyed with the guy's push and his run because I felt it was so force-fed. He was a heel. They brought him back 2 days later as a babyface wearing red, white, and blue. He body slams Yokozuna, gets a big title match at the second biggest pay-per-view of the year, and is being built to win the title at WrestleMania 10, and I was just horrified by it because I thought Bret Hart was the guy that should be the face of the company, and I think a lot of the roster did too. Vince luckily pulled the plug on all of that, but he was still trying to go with both of them. And he wanted Lex Luger to be that Hulk Hogan type character. So Borga, as strongly as he was put over, he was in the WWE, I think, for less than a year. By the time Survivor Series rolled around, his team was losing to Lex Luger's team, and I actually think Luger and Borga were the last two men in the ring. Luger pinned him and was like the sole survivor or whatever. He might have worked the Rumble, but by WrestleMania 10, he was gone. And that's a shame. I mean, that's something that happens. But a lot of times, those guys are really only brought in for that reason. Unfortunately, with him, he didn't stick around after that and continue a heel run and work on a lower level or work with other guys. He was completely gone from the company. And the final question this week comes from Michael Johnson. First of all, Michael, thank you for the kind words. You were letting me know about a petition regarding the British Bulldogs. Now, I should have mentioned this in my last Q&A because I believe I talked about Davey Boy Smith going into the Hall of Fame. Apparently, there's a petition online that, at first I kind of dismissed it because I'm like, petitions are stupid or whatever. But then I looked at the amount of support that it's gotten, and a lot of wrestling personalities have made videos and all of this supporting the British Bulldogs going into the WWE Hall of Fame. You sent me the link to it, and I took a look. I will also put that link in the description if anybody wants to take a peek. I was not aware of this petition. I didn't even know it existed. But I think it's nice, and whoever put it together, I think it's very thoughtful. My only problem with it is I don't think it's necessary. I think with the British Bulldogs, yes, Dynamite Kid is kind of fucked up, and British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, we all know, has his issues as well. But I don't think it's enough to keep them out of the WWE Hall of Fame. I mean, hell, the WWE just put in Scott Hall 2 years ago, okay? So I don't think the British Bulldogs are being held out of the Hall of Fame for any reason. I just think it's a situation where WWE hasn't gotten around to it yet. I fully expect one day either Davey Boy Smith or the tag team of the British Bulldogs to be in the WWE Hall of Fame. It's just, they haven't done it yet, that's all. I mean, I've been bitching for Demolition. Demolition is another tag team. I don't think the WWE has anything against them or their legacy in the WWE. They just haven't gotten around to putting them in yet. And we get a Hall of Fame every year with 6 to 8 people going in at a time, so there's plenty of time to get everybody in, and I think they will be in. And another thing with the British Bulldogs, yes, they deserve to go in. I have no doubt about that. and I agree with everybody that thinks they should be in, but there's really no rush when you think about it. Davey Boy's dead. Dynamite, he's kind of in rough shape, but I don't think he's on the verge of death or anything. And Davey Boy's kid is off, where is he now? Japan? They released him a couple of years ago, which I can't believe they did. I wish they would have kept him around to keep the legacy of the British Bulldog going. But it could be possible in WWE's mind. They're saying to themselves, okay, if one day we're going to put the British Bulldogs in, maybe we should wait a little while to see if there's ever an opportunity for his son to come back into the company. Maybe they can bring Harry back in one day in the future, and they can have him there when they induct his father into the WWE Hall of Fame, whether he goes in by himself or with Dynamite as part of the British Bulldogs. If not, they can always bring him back the way they brought in Carlito a couple years ago to induct Carlos Colon. But I think the WWE is thinking to themselves that kid has to be a part of this. He's got to be the one to induct him. And if he's not in the company right now, WWE might not want him up there on the podium making a big speech. So it's little things like that I take into consideration. I'm happy that everybody and all the wrestlers and personalities were voicing their support for the British Bulldogs to go into the Hall of Fame. I agree with each and every one of them. But I don't think this is a situation to where a petition is even necessary. The WWE, I'm sure, fully intends of putting them in one day. They just haven't done it yet. And I think that applies to a lot of people. I really want to see Demolition in there. Like I mentioned, I really want to see Rick Rude in the WWE Hall of Fame. Rick Rude had drug problems as well, but there's a lot of people in the WWE Hall of Fame with drug problems. Some of them are living, some of them are dead. I don't think that it's really enough to keep them out, especially if you're not promoting it. Nobody's going to know. The only people that are going to know about these people's personal problems is the people that actually go digging for it or are wrestling fans and already knew. Young fans, casual fans, fans of today, they're not going to know about Rick Rude's cocaine problem unless they seek it out. It's not like the WWE is going to include Rick Rude doing lines in their tribute package. And hell, put the Harts in too, for that matter. I want to see the Hart Foundation go in, but Jim Neidhart's a mess. And I don't know if they'll ever be able to get him up there on that stage coherent enough to make a fucking speech. But if they did, Bret Hart, considering the career he's had, he's got to be one of those multiple Hall of Famers. I would love to see Hart the way he is in already as a singles and then go in as a tag team as well. Only a couple guys are in twice. So my advice for everyone when it comes to the Hall of Fame and getting guys in, now that we've gotten over more of the controversial ones, now that Savage is in, now that San Martino and Warrior are all back, the only one really missing is Owen. They could still do that. They might still do it, and I think they will one day get him in some way, shape, or form with Martha's permission or without. They will put him in one day. And as it goes for everyone else, my advice is just be patient. I think we will get there with all these people. Everybody thinks that once the Hall of Fame comes and goes, that there's never going to be another one again. We have unlimited Hall of Fames in the future, and we've got a lot of guys going to be going in the next 5 years. In the next 5 years, probably 30 to 35 more people will go into the Hall of Fame just in the next 5 years. So we have lots of time and we have lots of opportunities to get everybody in, and a lot of times it's just timing. I'm sure WWE, as pertains to the Bulldogs, would love to put them in, but maybe they want to wait until they're in an area of the country that might appreciate the Bulldogs' work more, or they might want to wait till Harry comes back into the company to do something with them. There's a lot of things and a lot of factors that probably go in to them deciding who goes in and who does not. And I bet you when they're all sitting around a table discussing this stuff, they're like, let's hold off on them. Let's not do them this year. Let's wait maybe next year or the year after. Maybe the situations will be better and it'll be better opportunity to put them in. So a lot of times they could talk about people, but decide to hold them off a year or two. We're not in those meetings. We don't know what happens, but I don't think it's a case of the WWE ignoring the legacy of anyone. They just can't induct everybody at once. Thanks again for listening, everyone, and tuning in to this week's Q&A. I appreciate the response to this. Has been overwhelming. I have so many emails in my inbox to go through. You guys have given me an unlimited amount of material to go through and answer here. So, again, if I'm not answering your question for any reason, I truly apologize. I may have not even read it yet. Thanks again for listening, and I will catch you in just a couple of days with my Monday Night Raw review. Until next time, peace.